Okay, we're good, right? Okay.
So I got confirmation that the meeting is being live streamed, so I'm just going to double check the two sources and confirm.
Okay, looks good. So we'll get started. Welcome to our February 16th caucus and work session of the Albany Common Council. Just for the record, members present: Keegan, Hoey, Zamer, Johnson, Adams, Clark, Farrell, Romero, Anani, myself, Mr. Kimbrough, see Mr. Ballerin coming in. Staff, we have, is Brett here? Or is someone here for Brett? From city staff, we also have Director of Building and Codes, Rick LaJoy. I'm not, Chris Check, are you Corporation Counsel?
I'm Assistant Corporation Counsel. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to join the meeting. I'm the sole building code prosecutor here for the city of Albany. So pleasure to meet you all already.
Okay, cool.
I think they're here for the
law, for the next
law
meeting,
committee
right?
After, which I encourage everyone to attend.
Right. So question is Brett going to be attending this meeting? All right. We'll just
Brett is getting ready to join. He just texted me. He's looking for the credentials, so I'm going to send them to him. He should be on momentarily.
okay. All right, but we can just get right into the agenda. There's not a whole lot on there. So under local laws, we have local law B of 2022 by Mr. Anani. You want to say anything, Mr. Anani? It's just changing the date for the go ahead, you can.
Yes, the digital divide has been an issue here in the city of Albany, and last council decided to put a commission together to study a feasibility and logistics of a city-owned and operated municipal internet. This commission was put together to do that. Unfortunately, the COVID and other unforeseeable circumstances, they would need additional time. There are some people that resigned and is asking for additional time, and I think the time is for extension until June 15th. And this is something that is really important to all of us, and we want to make sure that as many people as possible in our city have access to the internet. So I think it's so important to have this commission have the additional time that they need to do such a phenomenal work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nani. And so I was asking about Mr. Williams because it's a local law, but it should be sufficient enough for us to allow it to age and then move it unless we have a law committee meeting coming up. Because the thing is, it's literally a line and it's just changing that date. Go ahead, Jenny, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to. I will be scheduling a law committee because we do have local law A that's coming to the law committee, and I'd like to deal with that sooner rather than later. But I don't see any need to, unless council members disagree. I personally would not see any need to have it come to the committee. It's just changing the date. We've already kind of vetted the whole process.
Yep. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just allow it to age, and then we'll pass it at our subsequent meeting. So it's a intro and whole for aging for local law B. The next local law C, it's the Public Safety Commission, local law C of 2022. There's several sponsors on here, Mr. Johnson, Anani, Hoey. Anyone want to kind of just give us an intro? or speak to?
Yes, I will say this, you know, our people have been calling for reform, and they're looking for transparency, and this is what we believe that the commission will provide. It would be a step in the right direction to have some oversight of, you know, some critical situations that have been happening in our city, and, you know, that leave our communities forever divided. So in an effort to respond to what the community has been calling for, I think that this is a piece of a resolution that's going in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. And any other sponsors? Okay, it's going to be a referral to the Public Safety Committee for discussion and to be worked on in any case. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you, President Pro Tem. I didn't have the Zoom login credentials at first, so I was trying to get those and trying to watch on Facebook at the same time. I think you asked a question about local law B. I didn't hear your full question, so if you wouldn't mind repeating that.
Yeah, no, it was just about allowing it to age versus, I know we didn't have to send it to committee, but I figure since it's just a line changing the date, that it would be fine, but you're the attorney, so I just wanted to ask you. So, but we got our answers, and we're just going to age it. We'll hold, you know, intro, hold, age, and then pass it once it's aged long enough.
Yeah, it just needs to age for, well, a week. So, you know, we should be able to pass that at the first March meeting then.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so thank you for that. And then local law C is a referral to public safety. On to ordinances, Mr. Anani, 52222 for the outdoor cafes. It'll be a referral to planning, but go ahead.
Gotcha. Just to kind of give you a quick, during the height of the pandemic, many businesses were forced to shut down. Several businesses adjusted and were successful because of, and was able to stay open because of outdoor cafe, outdoor dining. And we have, you know, learned from those initiatives, and the small businesses strongly supported. There are neighbors who supported. I feel like it was a public health concern to have everyone inside, and some businesses adjusted to have an outside cafe. It was done on a temporary basis, and I believe that we need to make it permanent. So we made it temporary until to see what the state was going to do, and now we're looking to make it permanent in our city. So give you more details as we go into committee.
Thank you, Mr. Nani, for all the planning. Next, under ordinances introduced, we have 62222, which actually, is that right? Okay, it'll be a referral to law. We'll actually have the sponsor be the law committee chair for that. And just simply put, it's pretty self-explanatory. Actually, Mr. Williams, you want to jump in? It's making cars move out of zone.
Yeah, sure. So
Go ahead.
I haven't looked at it in a few days, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's being made at the request of the Albany Parking Authority. Yeah, in very broad strokes, I think its aim is to prevent people who might park, say, in Zone A for 2 hours, and then go move their car somewhere else in Zone A and park there for another 2 hours and keep that cycle going all day. Which sort of defeats the purpose of the permit parking program. So it's designed to prevent people from doing that. Can certainly provide more detail, and we can get the parking authority into the committee meeting when it's considered. But those are the general purposes of the
Okay.
legislation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams. The referral to law. It makes, I mean, again, perfect sense if you can only move a spot, then, you know, that resident is still being subjected to folks that shouldn't be taking up parking, filling the spots. So that's a referral. Next on to resolutions introduced. Ms. Romero, 15 of Tom, it was your question on the last one?
Yeah, on ordinances held, on number 3, can we get Alfredo's name spelt right? Because that was under ordinances held, number 3. Ordinance 42122.
Okay, you got
Thank you.
that, Ethan? Valorant? Thanks, Tom. Okay. We're into the resolution introduced. Ms. Romero?
Sure. Thank you. I think this resolution was potentially introduced last year. We are reintroducing it again. Just as a brief background, beg buttons are put at pedestrian intersections to specifically request a walk signal, something that'll allow someone to cross a street. And as a concept, beg buttons prioritize vehicular traffic over pedestrians or cyclists or skateboarders. And as our city is moving towards a more pedestrian-friendly and walkable city, I'm hoping that we can also move away from beg buttons as a concept and as a traffic engineering tool. So this resolution just sends a signal that we're prioritizing walkability across our city and urging that newly designed intersections do not include beg buttons. And like I said, this is the first step. So I'm hoping to work with the council and with traffic engineering to figure out a local law or ordinance that would effectively preclude the use of beg buttons in highly congested areas of our city. But that's just something I'm thinking about, and I'd love to talk to people about that more. The resolution is just a first step.
Okay. All right. It just quite, I was under the assumption that we actually used, we added them automatically when they changed the stuff out. How about, if members are okay, we can move forward with it. Otherwise, I'll refer to public safety.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Again, I have a quick question about it. What was the pushback last time? I know Owusu brought this up last year. What was the pushback about it?
Yeah, I'm not.
That's a great question, actually. I think I was introducing too much legislation, but that's not here or there. I'm glad
that makes sense now.
Yeah, I'm glad that the councilwoman is pushing this forward. It's the time is now, particularly when you see what other neighborhoods are going through when we got frozen temperatures, freezing some of the beg buttons, and it's really unfair to the pedestrians. So I'm glad that this is being brought up. And again, like the councilwoman said, this is just the beginning.
I don't have a problem with it. I just wanted to make sure we were aware of any issues that might have not been brought up in this meeting. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So if members are comfortable, we'll vote on it on Monday. I thought I saw a majority of hands saying go ahead, move forward with it. So we'll do that. We'll be voting on it. Next, 162222 are by Ms. Frederick, who's not currently here. Mr. Williams, will you fill in?
Sorry. Yeah. So typically, the city and state law both offer a property tax exemption, a partial property tax exemption to senior citizens 65 and over, and if they occupy the property. There's a number of conditions, but quite a few people avail themselves of this property tax exemption. Under normal circumstances, seniors have to reapply or resubmit an application for this exemption every year. Last year, I think by executive order, still Governor Cuomo at the time, I think, at least temporarily did away with that requirement. This year, Governor Hochul also passed an executive order doing a similar thing, but whereas last year it was just a blanket order from the governor, this year the governor said that municipalities have the option to do so, but the council, in this case, or the governing body of the municipality would have to decide to do so by resolution. So this resolution accomplishes that goal. It directs the assessor to continue to apply senior exemptions to those who had them last year without the need for a reapplication. And it also empowers the assessor to, if he has, good cause to believe that somebody is no longer entitled to an exemption, to look into that and to pull that exemption if there's reason to do so. And, a reason to do so would be if the property was sold, or if, somebody's not living there anymore. A few different reasons, but that's the general purpose.
Right.
And this doesn't need to be done this week necessarily, but the tentative assessment roll goes out March 1st. The final assessment roll goes out the beginning of June. So, the sooner the better, probably.
Okay. And so do we know roughly how many properties where it's affecting, or?
I don't have
No.
that available right now. I can find
No.
that out.
Okay. So why don't we, our members, so why don't we, we'll intro this and just hold on to it.
I did say a moment ago that it doesn't need to be done this week, but with the tentative roll due out March 1st, if the council would be willing to move on it this week, or at Monday's meeting, that might be for the best. And I'm happy to find out in the interim how many properties.
And I will say these are this is not a new exemption, so it should not have any impact on our budget. And it's really just keeping, for our seniors, it's just keeping the exemption that they've had without having them to reapply. It's personally something that I hope that they get rid of, that you just are able to do it. And because for a lot of seniors, it's a complicated thing to go through that every single year and reapply. So it's wonderful to have the option to just continue on. But so it doesn't have any budget impact. And it's probably something that's really important to get out, to have done before the tax bills go up.
Okay, so that will be voting on next Thursday to move forward with it. So any questions, comments? Next resolution 172222 with a couple of co-sponsors, Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. This legislation has been a long time coming, with several advocates from, and this has been a concern for many New Yorkers and also residents all across the capital region, particularly when it comes to pedestrians and the way roads are designed, to make sure that drivers are safe and also pedestrians are safe, that when improvements are being made, it's made on behalf of all, not just a few. This legislation in support of state legislation, many advocates from the Bicycle Coalition, my one leader, former Councilmember Leah Goby, who's also a big advocate. We want to make sure that pedestrians are safe when they're moving around our city and all across the state. So there's a list of legislation that's being introduced on the state level, and we on the council want to send a message that we support all of them. And it just is essentially to make it that all neighborhoods are safe and everyone, pedestrians, drivers, and bringing attention to some of the crashes that take place. And I know that Jack was a prime sponsor, and also Tom Hoey, and also Gabriella, so if they want to say a few words.
Yes, any of the other sponsors wanna? Okay, Ms. Farrell.
I just wanted to note, I'm gonna double check, but I think this is fantastic. But it is something that the member I work for is actually the sponsor of some of those, but so I'm probably going to have to recuse myself from this vote, but I deeply appreciate, I think that it's from my own personal stance, I think it's incredibly important, and I appreciate my colleagues supporting this, but I just wanted to note that I might not be able to vote on it because of my day job.
Thank you. All right, so we'll be voting on that on Thursday. We'll move forward with that.
Sorry, Kelly.
Mhm.
The advocates and supporters would like to hold until March. I just got a message earlier today. So if we could just intro and just hold until March for passage. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, next, again, Mr. Nani, 182222, supporting universal childcare. You want to say something?
Again, this is a legislation that's being introduced on a state level, but it impacts all of us as residents. Very too often, many people in our city don't have access to childcare, and it's becoming less and less affordable. And I believe that with everything that this city has gone through and our state is going through, we need to pass a universal childcare. Childcare should not just be a luxury; it's a necessity, and everyone needs to have access to it. With the federal dollars that are coming in to our state, and also some of the state dollars, I think this is prime for a time to accomplish that. So we're just advocating it on behalf of residents of the city, but to make sure that everyone have access to childcare. We see the benefits as an educator when our kids have access to early child education. So important. You have parents who want to get back into the workforce, but because of the not having access to childcare, they're staying home, taking care of their little ones. Parents want to make sure that their kids are safe before returning back home. As the pandemic seemed like it's going down, with COVID cases going down, there's been calls for employers to go back to work. We want to make sure that we have a universal childcare so parents feel safe. It's not as easy. It's a challenge, but I think that the state has the means and resources to get it done. $5 billion to get it accomplished, to make sure that everyone have access to childcare this year and continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nani. Anyone else? Okay, we'll be moving that on Thursday. Moving forward with it. Okay, so that's the agenda, the legislation that was on our current agenda. Just real quick from the leadership meeting, was quick, and we didn't discuss a whole lot. Just three things. One, I brought up, because in leadership we had a discussion about adding staff, and I mentioned additional research and legal counsel type positions, and the mayor actually directed me to not directed me, pointed out that the council at some point in time, in a not so distant future, that we had a council to the council position, which I've never seen in the budget or any place. So I have Danielle and our staff looking for it to see where that is and where it disappeared to. But in any case, we're going to be having those discussions with continue with the administration, but also with the budget office, because that's really where you have to be talking to try to see where these funds are going to come from. So that was one. Ms. Romero, did you have a question about that, or did you want to? Okay.
I did, thank you. My question is, what is the salary line for counsel to the council, or whatever JR's position was exactly called? And
It's not the same as JR's.
It's not the same.
position. This would be
Oh.
additional.
It's different.
Oh, my
This is the
apologies.
addition.
Okay.
It'd be
There'll be
additional.
two different that's two different attorney positions. Okay. And then what is our process to find a new attorney for the council, or JR's position? And I apologize,
Right.
whatever that specific position was named. What's our recruiting process?
Right. So I will ask Ms. Gillespie if you just.
Once his position was vacated, or around the time he provided his notice of resignation, the position was posted. It's been posted on our website, and then they've also been using LinkedIn as a great way to advertise positions in the cities to cast a very wide net. To date, we've had one applicant that was fully qualified that had general municipal experience apply, but I continuously check in to see if there have been any other candidates so the council can start interviewing as soon as we get a large enough candidate pool.
Something that I was thinking was, would it be possible to reach out to NICOM if they have
I've already given it to NICOM. That's one of the other things that I do. I neglected to share that because I was just speaking from what the city does and how the city puts their positions out. I reached out to NICOM, and I'll follow up with Rockefeller too, because although Rockefeller has a master's program in public administration, they may have other attorneys that, are looking for, gigs in municipal law and to grow that area of their skill sets. So
have we considered doing a part-time position in the interim, or is that not worth it or possible?
So I
I
don't
think
know
the
how.
additional one, we're looking at part-time.
Yeah. Mr. Anani?
Yeah, it's no secret. I'm in full support of the council having additional staff. It's beyond me that we have 15 common council members. We have a council president, and we have essentially 2 staffers dealing with all the issues that 90,000 residents care about. I think that is beyond time for us to look at additional staffers, maybe 4, 5, 6 staffers. We're co-equal branches of government, and it's hard to deal with administration that have multiple staffers and the council who have a few staffers. So I think that the time has come, and I hope that we really are intentional about increasing our staff. But we cannot have staffers leave and then we're waiting to see when are we going to do another hire? When are we going to do another hire? The delay. And right now, I know that we have Ethan, but I'm a little bit hesitant to send too much stuff because we don't have a research council. And I'm pretty sure other council members are feeling the same. And I think that this cannot happen moving forward. I think this is a time for us to look at comprehensive staffing for common council members. There are many council members who are looking to get some stuff done. And I think that you need competent, hardworking, and multiple staffers to get the job done. So I think the time has come, and I strongly urge that we are intentional about increasing our staff.
Thank you, Mr. Nani. Well said. Ms. Zamer?
Just a quick question. Do we know that the salary that we're offering for an attorney is on par with other municipalities, with the similar position?
One could argue that is a competitive salary. If you look at the Troy, Waterville, and there's one other one. So one could argue that, but I believe before anyone makes a definitive answer, they're waiting to see that salary study come out, which would, could be more comprehensive.
Because if we've only gotten one qualified applicant.
The position was vacated officially on February 11th. So that's on or around when the posting went up. And
Yeah,
I feel like there are a lot of people that are entertaining career changes because, you know, they call this period the Great Resignation. You have a lot of people that are resigning and trying to figure out life. So I don't know if that is impacting the number of candidates that have indicated interest, but it could play into it.
okay, thank you.
It would be great if we had the pay study, I tell you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Anani.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah, Ms. Samer. Ms. Keegan.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering if we've ever thought about or considered developing like a fellowship program with Albany Law for those students who are sort of just coming in to help backfill some of our staffing, particularly with research, because it just seems like it would be a really good fit and good opportunity that would also benefit the council, but also allow a new graduate to gain some significant experience and can certainly be catered towards diversifying our workforce. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, we hadn't, but we could certainly entertain something like that.
And I'll send the job posting to Albany Law too for the research council position, because most colleges and universities have a job board or participate with handshake. So we'll just make sure we get it out there.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Councilwoman Keegan. I think the Government Law Center, Albany Law, would be a great resource. I think it's difficult for us to sit here and talk about current employees maybe not getting a fair pay, and then to talk about increasing our staff. And you know, I'm new to the council, haven't done a lot of work yet, so I can't speak to staffing needs that everyone feels like they need. But you know, I think we all we all get paid to be in this position, and I think it would be beneficial to kind of lean on the fact that we're in the capital of New York State, and there's a lot of people that would like to have experience in government, and create that internship and fellowship program, and would be happy to look into that more with anybody that's interested.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is your hand still up, Mr. Anani? No, okay, Mr. Balvin.
I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I'm glad that the vacancy has always been posted, because I do think it's critical for us to get a licensed bar attorney back as soon as possible, because we have had our conflicts at times where we may have not agreed exactly with Corporation Counsel. No offense to my good friend from Corporation Counsel, but there's been times when this council or previous council has had disagreements with the position of Corporation Counsel, and we leaned heavily on our dedicated legal staff. And I know we have a lot of great legal minds in the room, but we definitely want to make sure we have someone that's their focus, because they're the ones that are doing the research, they're the ones that are advocating on our behalf. And it makes it so that we who are presenting the legislation feel comfortable that it is legally sound. So I'm gonna miss JR. I really am. I mean, he was a great advocate, but I'm glad that it's posted, and hopefully we can get that position filled. And I support the idea of bringing in, great young minds that are still in the learning process of the field, to help as well. And if we can put a stipend attached to it, that makes more sense to me, because, students, legal students also are students who don't have a lot coming in. So, I mean, if we're gonna, we should definitely compensate them for their time and their skills as they develop new ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballerin. And so also, there was in leadership, we discussed the Violence Prevention Task Force. Ryan Shea was, the appointment of the mayors to the task force. The mayor gets a slot on the task force, and he, has left and moved on, and so that spot is vacant. But we really had Mr. Shea was doing a lot of work, probably a lot more than he should have been. And from the beginning, my thoughts were that we set up this task force with community folks, have it be grassroots, and have it be less government and more about the people, trying to sort through and figure this thing out. And we've had some issues. We had some people resign. Maybe going to have some more. But we're trying to reset. So I'm going to get together with our public safety chair, Mr. Hoey, and Mr. Mancini, who's the chair of the Violence Prevention Task Force, to try to do a reset and come up with a plan. So any members here, there's an open invitation for you to jump into the meetings or participate. They're posted on the calendar. We could use some more, ideas. And again, my idea and thoughts about violence prevention involves trying to assist the people that are doing the work and doing it better. I don't think recreating the wheel is going to work. I mean, and if it were such a simple thing to solve, my home city of Chicago would have solved it a long time ago. The violence there is as bad as it was when I left. Not to say I'm throwing my hands up, but it's a complicated issue. It's going to take a multi-pronged approach to deal with the issues, both finances, programming, jobs. I mean, you really got to attack it from all angles. So any of you have ideas, we welcome them, and we're gonna be firing that up again. Again, it's still going, it's ongoing, but we got to do a reset because we got to move some things around. And me and Tom will be working on that. So, Ms. Keegan.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Just a quick question for you, Kelly, as we're talking about the Violence Prevention Task Force. One of the things I've been somewhat interested in knowing is what guidance the Albany Police Department has with regards to when and how officers would make a decision to have somebody referred to CPAP for a psych eval. And that certainly is something that I have pondered in the Jordan Young situation. That was one of my big questions as to why he wasn't, put in for referral after the January 14th incident. And I think that is a piece and component that fits into the Violence Prevention Task Force, because that's one of the things that we need to be thinking about, particularly when we're dealing with, anybody who's expressing homicidal ideation in the community, and anybody who's involved in any kind of domestic violence situation. So it'd be really helpful to know kind of what the training is provided and what the policies, procedures, and protocols are regarding that. Because that may be something that we need to look at as we go through this process. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. And it again, that hasn't come up, and I missed a few meetings myself. We all did, because between the committee meetings and regular meetings, a few of them fell at the same time that meeting was being held. So some council members couldn't make it. But again, the police, there's one or two representatives, one representative from the police department on there, like a commander. And so we have access, and we can certainly have that conversation and get any information or data that we need as a part of that process. But I'll remember.
That just seems like such a critical component to, putting a stop to, events that sort of are chained together and happen one right after another, or folks that are repeatedly having interactions with the police department, but perhaps not the same officers, and how how we're sort of tracking and dealing with that to ensure that that particular individual has the appropriate intervention. That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Okay, thanks. All right, so that's all I have. Any members have anything before we shut down and move on to the next meeting? Okay, motion to adjourn our caucus.
So moved.
All right, second, Sergio, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hi.
Right, so we're staying on this link, right? Ethan? Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, so I'll quiet down and take a step back.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Law, Buildings and Codes Committee. We are joined by, and this evening's committee meeting is really a getting to know you for the Codes Department. If we also oversee law, so of course, I think Chris is here from the Law Department as well. If there's anything else that would like to be discussed and kind of overview, we welcome that as well. Our committee members, and I get to know a whole new committee. For committee members, we have Councilmember Keegan, Councilmember Clark, Councilmember, let's see, Councilmember Renane, and Councilmember Romero. Also joining us are Council members Hoey, Zamer, Adams, Kimbrough, Johnson, and Ballerin. We're also joined by our staff. We have the incredible Danielle Gillespie. We have the always amazing Ethan Samuel. We also are joined by Brett Williams is still with us, and we have Rick LaJoy, the amazing head of codes, his right-hand woman, Valerie Scott, and we were also just introduced to Chris Check from the Law Department. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Rick. Our hope tonight is Rick is going to kind of go through a bit about his department, different things that they do. Any questions? I know that Rick loves to, well, he pretends to love to answer questions. So I'm going to just run that he loves to answer questions. But that way we can kind of, it's a really important, I think you'll find like it's one of the most important departments that you'll interact with as a council member, because a lot of that is the on the ground things that impacts your constituents. Across the board. So it was something that Rick had reached out about this, and I really agree that it's just an important thing to go through. So we appreciate kind of the overview, and I'll turn it over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Good evening, everybody. I think Valerie's going to try and share her screen. I apologize if some of you have already seen this short little presentation, but we wanted to have the opportunity to kind of introduce ourselves to the new council folks, reintroduce ourselves to the existing council, kind of go over what our department does and how it interacts with the public and the council in general. And then primarily my goal was to spend some time to answer some questions and have conversations that some of you I talk to often, some of you I only talk to if there's an issue, but we're always accessible, and I just thought it was a good opportunity to have this meeting. So.
All right, let me try to share my screen here for you, Rick.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So again, we are the Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance. Our mission statement is to help ensure and promote health, safety, and quality of life for city residents, and to help protect the public. visitors, and investors through enforcement of the city and New York State Uniform Building Codes. We achieve this by being effective, efficient, and transparent. Okay. We want to show you our organizational chart and kind of show you how the hierarchy works within our department. As you'll see, it is kind of broken up into 4 sections. We have our support staff, our clerks, information clerks, permit tech, et cetera. And then our code inspectors, our building inspectors, and then our neighborhood stabilization coordinator. So we just want to give you a quick brief description of what each of those groups do. Our support staff responds daily to questions, concerns, and emergency calls from residents, contractors, city departments, and the general public. The interactions may be done via email, phone, dispatch, or in person. Our support staff are also responsible for processing and maintaining several types of applications and registries and licensing, which include the following: our permits, our general building permits, barricade permits, signs, electrical, plumbing. The registries that we also oversee and maintain are the public assembly, the elevator, sprinklers, commercial inspections, ROPs, and the vacant building registry. And then licensing, we license third-party inspectors that include electrical, commercial, elevator licenses, as well as the Class A and Class B electrical and plumbing licenses for the actual contractors. So we're pretty busy with our day-to-day, and then also maintaining and overseeing all of these registries and licensings. Our code inspectors conduct daily inspections. The inspections are generally scheduled in response to a call or a complaint, but they're also out doing inspections for homeowners who are having us do the ROP inspections. Our code inspectors also conduct proactive neighborhood inspections. We'll do these inspections oftentimes in conjunction with other city departments, council members, other stakeholders. And our code inspectors perform on average about 1,000 inspections per month. Our construction inspectors conduct plan review and field inspections to verify compliance with all necessary building construction and zoning codes. Our construction inspectors perform on average about 900 inspections a month and review over 400 permit applications a month. In conjunction with our code inspectors, both the code inspectors and our building inspectors rotate on-call duties that cover 24/7. So we respond all times a day, every day. Our on-call coverages include typically responding to calls to assist the police department, fire department, water department, general services. We're the enforcement arm for these departments. And our inspectors respond to other properties that are deemed an imminent threat to the public's health and safety. So that's where you'll see stabilizations or demolitions as needed. Our neighborhood stabilization coordinator is very busy. Sam is responsible for identifying and maintaining a database for all vacant buildings and drafts the quarterly reports that are given to the council. He also assists in developing strategies for the city, including, but not limited to, the enforcement of the New York State zombie law, the expedited tax foreclosures. He coordinates with other groups such as the Albany County's Blight to Betterment Committee. He does a lot of outreach to homeowners who are at risk of foreclosure, maintains relationships with other partners, stakeholders, and colleagues from across the city and state for that matter. And he's the primary operator at this point of our drone program. Our relationship and interactions with the council members are generally in response to complaints, concerns, or questions on behalf of the residents. We also work very closely with the council to help find solutions to the most pressing quality of life issues. We work to enact new legislation or to amend current regulations to better serve the community. And we like this slide, who should the council members contact? Communication is key, and we strive to be a very responsive department. Our council members are always welcome to contact our department during regular business hours. However, I do encourage and prefer members to contact myself directly. You all should have my cell phone number, and if you don't, let me know. That I'll give it to you. And in my absence, my deputy director or either of our senior inspectors, either code or building, we find it much more useful to have that direct conversation and connection so that we can better follow up with any issues. It also allows us to keep the council member updated so that you can let your constituents know of any updates as well. So I mean, this is our presentation. Again, my main focus was really to have the opportunity to speak to you and to hear from you, especially as we have, several new council members. I understand that the new council folks may have a different perspective, new set of eyes. You may hear things from your constituents that your predecessors, may not have had the same interaction. So I wanted to have the opportunity to answer your questions or, speak about anything. I'm always accessible and willing and wanting to help in any way that we can. So.
I just want to note that Councilmember Anane is with us as well. And I apologize if I missed you in the rundown of Wusu. So I'll take questions from committee members first, which Councilmember Keegan is one of them. So go ahead, Megan.
Hey guys, thank you so much for making the time outside of your sort of quote unquote regular workday to meet with us this evening. And I have a question that I think is actually really helpful for all of our new members to understand this process. I still don't quite understand it. So we have unoccupied structures that are not quite classified as vacant. And I was hoping that you could kind of help us understand what actually is needed to classify something as vacant and get it on the vacant property registry. And for some of these other properties that have been sort of unoccupied for an extensive period of time, what process do you want us to follow with your department to help get that property on your radar and to help sort of identify it before it gets to the point where nobody's going to buy it and nobody's going to invest in it, because that's a sort of a tipping point issue, I think, for all of our districts. Thank you.
Great. Good question. Thank you. So a few years ago, my predecessor actually had consolidated the definitions of a vacant building versus an unoccupied building to essentially anything that is not currently being lived in is vacant. So it no longer had to be defined by if a door is locked by normal means or a padlock, or if there's a piece of plywood on the window. We needed to consolidate that and essentially say if it's not occupied, it's vacant. So it needs to be, it needs to be on the registry. When that decision was made, we're also not naive to the fact that we have several families that like to snowbird, go somewhere else for a period of time, or a house may be unoccupied because it's for sale. So essentially what we'll do is inevitably the way it works out is we may send somebody a violation saying your building's not occupied, you need to register it as vacant. If the response is I'm selling it, I'm going to be selling it, if there's an adequate response of why it's not being occupied, so we know it's not going to be a long-term thing or they're snowbirds, it's we just tell them, okay, fine, we close the violation and they don't need to register the building. We're ideally going after the buildings that are, unoccupied, no plan for the future, sitting idle for, a period of time. But the overall response is if it's not being lived in, it is occupied or it is unoccupied.
And how long are they allowed to kind of play that game of it's for sale? I guess is my question, without really actually ensuring that the property remains sound. Because I mean, I think this is more common probably in certain areas of the city, but it's certainly an issue for all of us across the city with certain sporadic properties around our districts that we get lots of complaints about.
Rick, I just wanted to kind of expand on what you answered. If a property is for sale and it has code violations, it is still subject to being registered and correcting those violations. So I think that answers your question. It's not so much a period of how long, it's a period of, it can be for sale forever, but you have to keep it up.
Mhm. Correct. Yeah, and I think there was, and I'd have to be honest with you, Councilwoman, I think there is some verbiage in there as well that states if it's for sale, it has to be, with a broker or an agent. And those are typically contractually, with that person for a period of time as well. So more times than not, it's really just a matter of, getting a response in general. If people are maintaining it, we're not trying to just collect fees. We'd rather, my opinion has been, since I've come into the city, is the building, if it's going to sit for 50 years vacant, it just needs to be maintained, not be a nuisance property, not have violations, and kept up. There's several reasons why a building is vacant, and we don't always have the quick solution to get it back, occupied, up and running. Could be financial, could be tied up in legal battles. But my intent and goal has been, if it's going to be there for whatever period of time, it has to at least not be a nuisance property.
There are guidelines for what it means to be for sale, and there are specific timelines too, as I remember. And I would also encourage council members. Sam Wells will actually take a tour of you with your ward. For some wards, it takes several days to go through it and tour all the vacant properties. And the helpful thing for that is you can also point out, so I pointed out several vacant properties in my ward that he did not know about. So then they kind of worked with them as well, because they don't always know. I mean, the people that live here know the vacant properties, but you wouldn't necessarily know that the property is vacant unless you're actually living on the block and know what's happening with the house. And I would just note that if anybody is thinking of doing that, I would wait a couple weeks to reach out to Sam, because he just got married on Monday in the council chambers. So wait a couple weeks. I don't know if they're going anywhere or not, but give them a honeymoon phase anyway. But I definitely encourage people to do that, because it was really one of the best things that I've done to learn about what's happening in the ward and the story of the different houses that are vacant. Councilmember,
just if you could give Sam maybe till March 1st, because he is out for the rest of the month, whether or not they're honeymooning or not, he is off the books. So
yes, yeah, that's so post, give him a little bit, give him a month or so,
and then start out with congratulations on your marriage, however I need it.
And Councilwoman Farrell, that's a great point also. We highly encourage communication with us and having us do walks, Alfredo, Owusu, we do a lot of walks in particular neighborhoods per the request of the council members. So, we're never too busy. We will get it on the calendar. We will do it and spend as much time as you need us to do it with you. So it is very, very helpful on our end as well. So.
And not just for vacant buildings, right, Rick?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Councilmember Clark, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question?
I'm good.
Okay. Are there any other questions from non-committee members, anything like that? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Hi, Rick and Valerie. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your department and what you do and the amount of help that you've given me up here in the 15th ward. Rick, I wanted to find out, with permits to dig up the street, that doesn't go through your department, does it?
No, sir. No, that's typically through DGS. And possibly, depending on what the work is, the water department, but anything in the right of way is generally Department of General Services.
Now, do they get in touch with you? Do you realize stuff's going on? I mean, it would make sense to me, especially like with water and gas, going to a building if they're digging it up.
If the work is going to eventually get to where it gets to the structure, then yes. But if it's just on the grounds or into the city right away, it doesn't necessarily have to, we don't have to know about it.
Okay. Well, and again, this is my opinion. I would love everything to go through your department because we have better communication back and forth. Sometimes like they're digging up a whole street in my ward. I have no idea what's going on. I'm getting phone calls. It's a weekend. I don't know who to get a hold of. And I know if you were there, I could call you on your cell.
I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Well, and that, and that doesn't, I'm very happy and glad to help, any of you, even if it's something that it doesn't fall within my department. I'm always happy to, find out what it is and get back to you as well. I know it can be frustrating if you need something right away, but oftentimes I may have a quick contact to somebody and can get you that answer. But
thanks, Rick. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And could I just, 1 second, Councilman Farrell, you thanked us.
Oh.
You thanked us for being here outside of business hours, and Rick is probably too modest to point out. Unfortunately, we don't have business hours when things happen. I know I speak for Rick when I speak for myself and say, please don't hesitate to wait until the next business day to reach out to us. We understand that things happen outside of business hours, and we always try to respond to you accordingly. So,
I think you
always on.
missed my Cody fingers when I said that. I literally was like business hours because I know Rick is.
Our business hours pretty much are 24/7. But yeah, so
we still like to give you, I would always urge council members, though, if it's not a big emergency, to give as much time to our staff as possible. You guys are incredibly hard workers, and every single council member appreciates you and knows that you go above and beyond. I think a lot of us wish that we could hand all the departments over to you guys. And I just wanted to check in with the law. Chris or Brett, do you want to say anything? It's a very different department. Law is kind of self-explanatory. It's the law department. So it wasn't something I said I didn't feel like there was necessarily any larger discussion needed, but I certainly wanted to. You're both here and we appreciate you being here. So if you wanted to say anything, you're welcome to. You also, there's no pressure if you don't want to.
No, thank you all. I just wanted to introduce myself, and Rick and Val are fantastic. I highly recommend reaching out to them, having the time to have that discussion. I'm also here as a resource if you ever need anything. My role specifically is whenever someone doesn't comply with the notice of violation that the buildings department sends out, I prosecute that case here in the city court. Right now, I think I'm juggling about 500 to 600 cases on my own, but we're making it happen. Please feel free to reach out at any time. Happy to talk, the laws on the books. Happy to talk about anything that you'd like. So please feel free to reach out anytime. And thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for coming. We really definitely appreciate it. Are there any other questions? Good, Megan.
Sorry, I keep being the one to ask all the questions. We have started putting some pieces of legislation together to help better enforce code throughout the city. I'm assuming, Chris, a lot of that falls onto your shoulders for that to be actually effective in terms of, you're not responding for a lot of our out of city absentee landlord type issues. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, and maybe you're not allowed to answer this question, but do we actually have the resources we need to affect those policies or put those policies into real serious action. Because I think that that's something that we need to think about.
No, that's a great question. I think that that's also a question that's worth asking the buildings department in terms of the staff and team that they have, because they're the ones that do all like the enforcement on the ground. In terms of like the caseload here, this position used to be filled, two different people kind of split their time between it, and this is a grant funded position. So this is the first time we've ever had someone just solely working on code matters full time. I don't do anything else. All my other assistant corp counsel colleagues will kind of dip their hands and feed into other areas. I just do code things. That being said, I would never say that, more people wouldn't be helpful, because, like I was just saying, I currently have between 500 to 600 cases in prosecution. And at any given time, there's 200 to 300 cases that are waiting in line to be filed by the buildings department. So long answer to your question, more resources, always helpful. But what I'm trying to do here before this grant runs out in September 2022 is to really try to automate as much of this position as possible, because it's impossible to give 500 cases, the attention that each one deserves. So trying to automate, trying to be as strategic as possible to try to go into the neighborhoods and areas that need the most help first, and, prioritize, strategize, and try to be as automatic and efficient as possible. Sorry for that long-winded answer to that question.
So Hyde's son Brooks is very interested in sharing all of his thoughts. So Hyde texted me a question to allow Brooks to fully communicate with his parents at this time in a loud manner. And he's curious about the working relationship with the land bank, and how that kind of interacts with demoing buildings and taking over vacant properties.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship with the land bank. In fact, while Chris was talking, I really wanted to express, how thankful we are for Chris, but just our relationship in general with, all the departments. Now, I'm naive in the sense that I wasn't around with the previous administration, so I don't know how other departments kind of work together. I can tell you our interactions with other departments are really, really close knit, and I think that only benefits, the community. So, an extension of that is our relationship with the land bank. Sam Wells is actually on the board as well, so he's got a nice connection there. I am on that Blake to Betterment Committee, which is through the county legislature, and the land bank is on there. We really work hand in hand in a lot as they're taking properties. They'll reach out, try to get information, see what kinds of things we know about it, and we reach out to them as well with their buildings, and they're super responsive. So we definitely work hand in hand. The other part of your question, I forget, Jenny, was Councilwoman Farrell.
Jenny is great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Just how that kind of interacts with the process of taking over vacant properties, demoing, and maybe if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Like
So my goal since I've come to the department is to, what I've been saying to everybody is I want to be at a point where we're not standing in front of an emergency demolition due to neglect, and we are actually heading pretty quickly towards that direction. In doing that, working with the land bank has been really helpful, because now they are also able to better identify buildings before they take them from the county, and aren't just forced to take every single building. They're able to not take the ones that are ultimately going to go towards the demolitions. So we had won some grant money, and we worked with the county and the land bank to identify some buildings that we could do proactive demolitions, because we knew they were heading in that direction, and to kind of go through that entire process so that we could better articulate, the stumbling blocks for anybody trying to go through that process, including us, in the time frame and the money, et cetera. But their focus on quality of life and our focus on the quality of life, really mesh well. And I think the fruits are being born of, just being at a position now where our proactiveness is, so in the forefront that we're not doing nearly as many of these emergencies that we had been doing. So hope that answers. If not, I can reach out to Clark and get answer a little better if he has something to follow up with.
I think that was a great answer. And absolutely, if anybody has any follow-up questions or anything like that, please. Oh, he gave a thumbs up. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned. I'm just going to ask, I guess, you, Jenny, with Chris, the grant running out for Chris in September, are we going to get a backlog when he goes? I know he said he's trying to automate it, but is that something we're going to try to extend or do something about? I don't know if that, does he report to Rick or he's corporation counsel? How does that work?
He's in Corp Counsel's office. I don't know, Chris, do you know? Because I agree. I mean, especially Chris has 500, you said over 500 cases. And I know that one of the main, I'm sure, Tom, you've experienced this too. One of the major things is actually having somebody move those cases forward has been one of the big issues we have. So I agree with your concern. Do you have any info for us, Chris? Should we be like making some noise?
No, it's my full intention to stay on as long as possible beyond the grant, if possible. I don't think I can speak much more beyond that either way. But I think that it's definitely my intention to stay on as long as possible, because I think that it'll take like at least another year or two, I feel like, for codes to be where it needs to be. But I can't much beyond
correct
that.
me if I'm wrong, though. You've brought in some pretty big judgments that could pay your salary to continue.
Yeah, that's right, Valerie. Part of my position, and also we have a bunch of outstanding judgments. We have like hundreds of outstanding judgments that we were never able to collect on. So we've been collecting on those. I believe recently our most recent settlement, for those of you who haven't heard, we had a Tri-City initiative, which we teamed up with Schenectady and Troy and instituted a big zombie lawsuit, filed 18 coordinated lawsuits. And I'm pretty sure the settlement from that would be enough to fund this position, but it all goes into a general fund. It's all
Chris's position was funded under the Cities Rise grant. And the intention was not to fund the position forever. It was to provide seed money to show that having that position would fund itself. So we're not going to give Chris up without a fight.
Oh, no.
This is also being modest. One of his other initiatives that he's taken on is to help Corporation Counsel's office develop a better system for trying to collect on some of these judgments that have been sitting there uncollected for a long time. So that's helped greatly ramp up the amount of money that we actually are able to collect on the judgments that the court renders in our favor. So,
and as part of the Cities Rise application committee person, that was the intention. It was to allow, we understood that Corp Counsel was swamped with day to day. And it was, if we have this position dedicated to this, it will fund itself over time. So that was part of the grant application.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, thank you all so very much. We appreciate all the work that all of you do. Codes is so important. Chris, it was an absolute thrill to meet the hammer that brings everything together. And we really appreciate your work, and thank you to all the council members that stayed. Definitely reach out with any questions. Rick is great, and I'm also, of course, always happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. So with that, could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
And I hope everyone has an incredible month. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Good night, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.